節目內主持人及嘉賓的言論純屬個人意見，並不代表本台立場。
Oh, hi, I'm Ben. This is, I think, the 33rd episode of Boiling Point. Julian couldn't be here today, so yeah, I'm going to try and do this alone, which is the first time. Firstly, I want to follow on a bit from last week's episode where we discussed the League of Social Democrats' protest against Steve Bannon, because there's been I had some contact with those LSD guys. Actually, I actually invited them to be on this show, Long Hair and Avery and because because we mentioned them, of course, and I thought perhaps in this episode we could get their perspective, trying to explain why they appear to be okay with Hong Kong nationalism, but they're against American nationalism. But they both declined. They were both busy, they told me. But I asked in a message, could they explain why they appeared to be accepting of or even having Hong Kong nationalists at their speaking at their events, and why they feel so differently about Steve Bannon, the American nationalist. And Avery didn't reply, but Long Hair kindly sent a reply, and he said, and I quote, and I asked him, he's talking about Hong Kong nationalists, and he said, quote, "If they become imperialistic, I will protest against them. The fact is that they are against the powerful empire, which will become imperial forces very soon." And actually, I screen capped it. So, operator, can you please show pic 6? Yeah, okay, this is from Long Hair. He makes a topographical error in the second word. It's supposed to be they, not the. And the they he is referring to Hong Kong indigenous guys, Ray Wong and Edward Long. And this is a very interesting comment, because basically imperialism is basically colonialism or expansion of a people beyond their motherland or their territory that they feel they're entitled to. So I guess we can assume that what Long Hair is saying is that if Hong Kong nationalists try to invade neighbouring territories, perhaps Macau or mainland China or Taiwan or I don't know, he will protest against them. So it sounds like as long as Hong Kong nationalists are only trying to establish the Hong Kong nation state within the boundaries of Hong Kong, which have been set for quite a while, they're not imperialistic, and he won't protest against them. They're merely nationalistic, and we can say that, yeah, he's okay with nationalism, he's just not okay with imperialism. Okay, okay, thanks operator, that's enough of that pic. And so getting back to that that protest, operator, can you please, what I think is interesting to note is the way the Western media and, well, whether or not the term media is the Western journalism how they presented or portrayed the protest against Bannon is, I think, worth noting, because long hair's protest was very small, and some reporters on the scene, actually a guy by the name of Aaron McNichols, who's a journalist for Storyful, he said there was a small number of protesters. Operator, can you please show pic 1? He said that on on Twitter. And here we have a photo of long hair, and well, I can see 2 people in that photo, but you know, you can see about, I don't know, 10 banners. So it looks like the number of banners was about a multiple of 5 to the actual number of protesters. And actually, this screenshot is from a video, and Aaron McNichols actually did a pan across the whole protest zone, which was probably about 5 meters, and there's maybe half a dozen people, protesters I should say, and there's probably 2 or 3 times that many photographers and journalists, and that's worth noting. Just keep that in mind. And we have some other Twitter people making comment about this this protest and how it was portrayed. Now, operator, can you please show pic 2? Okay, we have this Twitter user, Guy F. He said that a Reuters journalist called Bannon a Nazi, but then the tweet was deleted. But this guy F is pretty cluey, and he was able to find that tweet, and so we have proof of this Reuters journalist calling Bannon a Nazi. Operator, can you please show pic 3? And so he's actually, he jokingly, he says he sketched this tweet from memory, but of course he's joking. He's got it from somewhere else, and we can see where the Reuters journalist, whose name I have obscured or I've tried to keep her privacy, because I actually know her, and she's not a bad person, and she's probably just within the environment of Reuters and with much of the other Western media. Calling Bannon a Nazi is par for the course, and actually calling any nationalist a Nazi or a racist or a fascist is par for the course, because I'll get to that. I'll explain why shortly. So we have this, just to recap, we have this small protest against Bannon, and with Aaron McNichols saying just a few people there. And you can see from the photos and the film there's only a few people there. But what I want to look at now is how the New York Times, The Guardian, and Reuters reported this. And I want to do this because I think they try to hype the size of this protest, or they try to hype the meaningfulness of this protest. And operator, can you please show pic 5? Okay, so here's the Reuters story with a video, and you can see that the graphic from this screen cap just shows basically a sign that says "Toxic Nationalist." Well, Bannon is a nationalist, that's true. Toxic just seems to be a smear. And operator, can you please show pic 7? And here we have the venerable New York Times showing a very similar photo with the slogan "Toxic Nationalist." And you also have Bannon and Xi Jinping kind of joined together, and the slogan says, "No to racism and nationalism." So what we are seeing here in this so-called respectable Western media, like the New York Times and Reuters, is well, they're actually giving significant prominence to these, what I would call globalist protesters. And these globalist protesters are equating nationalism and racism, which is false. That's wrong to do because they're not the same things. Just like Hong Kong nationalism, you don't have to be a Hong Konger to be a Hong Kong nationalist, or to have a Hong Kong idea. There's many, for example, Westerners, Europeans who are Hong Kongers, have a Hong Kong ID, and understand what Hong Kong nationalism is. And it's actually it's exactly the same thing in the US. Although a lot of American nationalists are called racist, fascist, and Nazis, but actually they don't care about someone's race, because actually nationalism does not depend on race. This is just a trick, a smear that what we can say globalists use to try and beat nationalists down, equate them with Hitler or whoever. And it's very interesting. This NGO, or this research outfit in the US, basically said, it's called Judicial Watch. They said that the mainstream media in the West is the propaganda arm of the deep state. That might sound like an outlandish claim, but actually I think it's becoming increasingly obvious. Operator, can you please show pic 8? And here we have, the Guardian, they're all in the same boat. The mainstream, the Western media love to, or are just, basically a propaganda arm of this globalist deep state that wants to equate all nationalism with racism, which is disgusting because it's false, and well, yeah, I mean, it's a smear. And I want to point out once again, that's enough of that pic, thanks, operator. I want to point out again, what we have in Hong Kong nationalism is the perfect example of the ethnic nationalism. And actually, it's civic nationalism. What we see in Hong Kong is civic nationalism, and also we see civic nationalism in the US. Actually, we see it all around the world now. But globalists just want to paint it as racial nationalism, or as racism. But that's a smear. That's false. Although I admit that there may be some racists who can't tell the difference between nationalism and racism. What we can say is the globalists are taking a very small subunit of nationalists in various places, and then attributing their racism to the whole group, and for the purposes of propaganda, for the purposes of smearing. So what's become increasingly clear is that I think with the examples of the Reuters, New York Times and the Guardian story, along with the Hong Kong Free Press, which was, from memory, I think it was just a bunch of photos of this protest, and actually very little substance, and a critical analysis of what Bannon actually stands for. And that's the way the globalist movement is. They don't want to actually discuss the real issues of wages, employment, and who wins and who loses out of globalism. They just want to tar anybody who doesn't agree with them. Anybody who doesn't agree with globalism is a racist, a Nazi, a fascist, Adolf Hitler, etc. But I think more and more people are realizing this scam or this dishonesty, and well, it's continuing to spread. You know, we can see that Hong Kong nationalism is being mainstreamed, becoming mainstream, or has been made mainstream, and actually the fact that the Western media is sympathetic to Hong Kong nationalism is, as I've pointed out, while the propaganda arms of the deep state are sympathetic to Hong Kong nationalism, they will smear nationalism in Western countries, Europe, Australia, the US, etc. Okay, I think that's the end of this segment. We'll see you when we come back. Bye.
經錯過我哋精彩嘅節目，而家上嚟呢個網址就可以訂閱晒我哋8大頻道，付費之後仲可以重溫晒所有精彩嘅節目。記得要訂閱我哋嘅 YouTube channel 同埋讚好我哋嘅 Facebook 專頁啊！